So Ukraine has released this very democratic blacklist of journalists, professors, intellectuals, you name it. Okay, so this is a list that's comprised mostly of foreigners, right? So American journalists, there are Indians on it, people that are mostly outside Ukraine who have said things that the Ukrainian government doesn't like. And I find this very funny because the whole time they're saying, "Oh, we have to fight for Ukraine. Ukraine is a democracy. We are defending the very democratic and European values, right? That form the foundation of our society." And then they just blacklist journalists. I'm serious. Here, let me show you what's up. Okay, so this is the actual list on the website. If you go translate it, if you translate the website, you'll get this result that says, sorry, I'm just going to scroll to the top. It says, speakers who promote narratives consonant with Russian propaganda. And they've basically put a list of people with their photographs and their names. And I've translated, I went through, Claudia and I went through the trouble of actually translating what they're guilty of, right? Because they've actually put the name and then said why this person is guilty of quote unquote Russian propaganda, what their crime is. So let's see. We have Mir Shimer, who is a very famous professor. His crime is saying that NATO has been in Ukraine since 2014 and that NATO provoked Putin. We also have Ray McGovern. Okay, so I've interviewed him. He used to work in the CIA. And he said that no one should unilaterally condemn Putin. We also have Richard Black, who was a senator, I think, in Virginia. He's a colonel in the former colonel in the army, right? But he says Russia has freedom of speech, unlike the U.S. and the West. And he said that the U.S. enslaves Ukraine, and the supply of latest weapons will not help. Russia will win. So he said a bunch of things, right? He's very naughty. We see Caleb, who works for RT. They say RT correspondent. And he said that Russia's protecting Donbass. We also have Claire Daly, right? And if you keep going, we've got Scott Ritter, okay? So, of course, he's guilty of saying that there are NATO bases located on the territory of Ukraine, and so on and so on. We have Tulsi Gabbard, okay? So, again, I find this one funny. I don't necessarily agree with any of these people completely with all their views. But I just find this really funny that Tulsi Gabbard, who's been, what rank is she in the army now? She used to be major. I think she's lieutenant colonel now. I don't know. She's a very high-ranking officer in the National Guard. She's been in, I think, the House Intelligence Community, or the Armed Services Committee, excuse me. I mean, she's had background checks, like more background checks than most people on this list, and they still call her a Russian propagandist. What a bunch of rubbish. Absolute rubbish. Seriously. They also put a serving senator. They put Rand Paul. Rand Paul. They put him on here. And then we have Glenn Greenwald. They put Glenn. Oh, man. And what is Glenn guilty of according to this list? He talked about the biolabs, of course. We're not allowed to say that naughty word. And that the U.S. should not provoke Russia into nuclear war by helping Ukraine. I mean, this is just outright pathetic, this entire list. It's really pathetic. And it's so wild. Do you know they put Lula on this list? Lula da Silva, who is, I think just a few days ago, he's gone on the ballot, so he's going to be running for president in Brazil, right? He used to be the president of Brazil, and they, to prevent him from running, these corrupt judges, they put him in jail, and there's a whole story about that, which Glenn exposed. So the former president of Brazil is also apparently a Russian propagandist. What's the criteria for this list? Like, why don't they put Jeremy Corbyn on here as well? Where is the Pope? It's so random. It's so random and ridiculous. I want to show you some of the responses, right, from these people. So this is from Unheard, and here's one guy who got put on the list. Okay, so his name is Edward Lutwak, and he strongly rejects being labeled a Putin acolyte. So, quote, from the 24th of February, day one of the war, he has relentlessly argued that not just the US, UK, Norway, and others should send weapons to Ukraine, but also the reluctant trio, France, Germany, and Italy. He says, I have personally lobbied defense ministers of NATO countries to send more weapons as part of the war effort. I'm not exactly Putin's most faithful agent. That one, I mean, that's just mind-boggling. The guy's literally saying, attack, help, Ukraine to defend itself, send them weapons. And they still say he's a Russian propagandist. Wow. He said that, quote, again, this is, he said that, quote, it is a fantasy to believe that Russia can be squarely defeated. In Kiev, they have interpreted this stance as meaning I'm pro-Russia. So that's what he's guilty of. This stupid, simple comment. And here we have Mir Shimer, very famous, okay? He's particularly famous. He went viral a few months ago, I should say, because there's a video of him in 2015 or something, a few years ago, predicting that this would happen, right? He predicted this war. And this is what he had to say about being placed on this list, okay? He said that, quote, when I was a young boy, my mother taught me that when others can't beat your arguments with facts and logic, they smear you. That is what is going on here. I couldn't agree more. I love that. I love that very much. He goes on to say that I argue that it is clear from the available evidence that Russia invaded Ukraine because the US and its European allies were determined to make Ukraine a Western bulwark on Russia's border, which Moscow saw as an existential threat. He said, Ukrainians of all persuasions reject my argument and instead blame Vladimir Putin, who is said to have been bent on conquering Ukraine and making it part of a greater Russia. But there's no evidence in the public record to support that claim, which creates real problems for both Kiev and the West. So how do they deal with me? The answer, of course, is to label me a Russian propagandist, which I am not. Here we have Glenn Greenwald, right? So, he said that war proponents in the West and other functionaries of Western security state agencies have used the same tactics for decades to demonize anyone questioning the foreign policy of the US and NATO. This is standard McCarthyite idiocy, right? This is something that I talk about a lot, that we are living in a third Red Scare, okay? Basically where anyone you don't like or anyone who questions the state, they're a Russian agent, they're a communist sympathizer, blah, 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 right? They're Russian propagandists, etc., etc. It's very McCarthyite, right? McCarthy was this congressperson in the 50s, and he had these famous, hearings where he would accuse people of being communists, and then he went too far. Started accusing people in the army and so on. But it's, that period of just, ruining people's lives, Hollywood actors and actresses' lives by accusing them of being Soviet sympathizers or Russian sympathizers. Yeah, it's very reminiscent of that, okay? And Glenn goes on to say that the Ukrainians have the absolute right to pursue whatever war policies they want. But when they start demanding that my country and my government use its resources to fuel their war effort, then I, along with all other Americans, have the absolute right to question that policy or to point out its dangers and risks. Fair enough. Absolutely. Right? And I have the same right as a British citizen, right, to question why the hell my government is supporting, this war effort and bringing us closer to nuclear war with Russia and ending the goddamn planet. And of course, doing other things, which I'll get to in a moment in the program. So Glenn goes on to say that I don't care at all about Ukraine's attempts to shut down debate in our country by smearing journalists and politicians who are questioning US NATO policy as being Russian propagandists. That tactic is as inconsequential as it is cheap, tawdry, and discredited. What a grand finale. So, just to continue, Glenn also went on Fox, and he had this to say.
So, you're being blacklisted by the Ukrainian government, which is a beacon of democracy. Tell us how this works.
Yeah, I mean, I thought President Zelensky had a war to run. Apparently, he has a lot of time to watch the Morning Joe show on MSNBC, where they sit around for hours accusing everybody they want to discredit of being a Kremlin agent and teaching American liberals how to do the same. You know, it's easy to mock, but it's actually quite outrageous, Tucker. The Ukrainians have a conflict with this neighboring country in Russia. They're totally free to pursue whatever war policies they want. They can fight Russia for the next 10 years if they choose. But that's not what they're doing. They're begging and, in a sense, demanding that other countries, including my own, the United States, provide them with a seemingly endless supply of weapons and money, which means we not only have the right but the obligation to debate that and ask whether that's in the interest of the American people to do. And so for Zelensky to essentially try and export the repression he's imposed in his own country here to the United States by shutting down debate and accusing those of us asking questions of being Kremlin agents or Russian propagandists takes incredible gall, while he's also demanding that we turn over all our money and weapons to him at the same time.
This is the guy George W. Bush described as the George Washington of our age. I haven't heard really anybody in Washington.
that was pretty good. That was very, very, very good. So, of course, you all know Glenn Greenwald. He broke the NSA story with Edward Snowden, and of course the car wash story in Brazil. Here's Tulsi Gabbard, who was also put on the list. And by the way, in addition to what I mentioned before, she was a congressperson for Hawaii. So again, you're in Congress, you're in the army, you're serving on House committees, you've been background checked a gazillion times, and then people still want to say, "Oh, Russian agent, Russian agent." Shut the hell up, man! Come on, she's you don't have to agree with her, but that's just logically it's irrational. This is what she had to say.
Someone the Ukrainian government says should be censored. She serves in the U.S. military. She served in the United States Congress. She ran for president. Now she's joining us, and we're happy that she is. Congressman, thank you so much for coming on. What's your reaction to finding yourself on this blacklist?
I see the hypocrisy, Tucker. The hypocrisy of this blacklist is, and frankly, why the American people should care about this is the Biden-Harris administration and the Washington elite from both parties are continuing to be willing to impoverish the American people and people around the world and push us closer and closer to nuclear war and Holocaust, all to protect democracy and defeat autocracy in Ukraine. And all of this is happening as the Ukrainian president is frankly exposing that there is no democracy in Ukraine. You mentioned a few examples of some of the things that he's doing in silencing any dissenting voices, imprisoning political opponents, banning all political activity from the 11 opposition parties, frankly, taking control of all national media under his unified information policy. And now he's turning his sights on Americans, not only.
That's very, very good that she mentioned that. That's very important. Remember, we covered that when it happened a few months ago. Very, very, very good that she talked about, the opposition parties being shut down, the media being consolidated. Very democratic. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand in wartime, the government might employ, national emergency laws to do and acquire equipment and certain things. That was, this has been going on for a while. They just used the opportunity to go even further.
Only myself and others you've mentioned, but a sitting U.S. senator. The danger of this, again, goes to the cost that our leaders are willing to exact as they continue this facade of a push for so-called democracy and defeat autocracy. The whole thing is so hypocritical, and we need to hold our leaders accountable for it.
Right. So, again, when I grew up, I saw, for me, Fox News was, they had like an American flag on the logo. It was like, we have to bomb Iraq. And so it's nice seeing a few minutes of sensible, rational talk. In any case, going back to the core of it, to this list, I mean, I don't even know I don't even know what the criteria for it is. It's so outlandish. It's so bizarre. Like, apparently, if you don't blindly praise Zelensky and hand over all your money so they can buy weapons, then you're clearly a Russian propagandist. I think this is very dangerous because, look, man, who gives a fuck about Russia? Seriously, this is about our governments, our governments, right? Do you see how they love, the media love dissidents in Russia? They say, oh, look how brave those journalists in Russia are for challenging Putin, for challenging their government. And then when we do it, when we challenge our government in the UK, in the US, they call us Russian propagandists. What the fuck is wrong with you? What kind of logic is that? Who gives a crap about Russia? This is about our governments. What are we doing? I'm not Russian. You're not Russian. I'm not Ukrainian. You're not Ukrainian. What the hell are we doing there? Why are we sending money? Why are we sanctioning our own citizens? I'll get to that in a moment. Yeah. What the hell is going on? And just like shutting down, banning, censoring, demonetizing anybody who doesn't blindly go along with this bullshit. No, I'm sorry, man. You guys are in for a big surprise. You want to talk about democracy? You are the biggest hypocrites. These Western governments are the biggest hypocrites. They're lying to their own citizens constantly. They own this giant media machine to run to run public opinion and to consolidate it with government policy. It's not happening, man. It's not happening. We're going to challenge that. We're not going to let you get away with this. You're not going to just shut down anybody who disagrees with you by calling them a Russian this and Russian that. Go to hell. Shut your mouth. We will challenge our government. We will hold it accountable. Okay? You hypocrites. You love it when people do it in Russia, but when we do it in our country, you don't like it all of a sudden. Wow. And again, going back to this list, this is all part of this McCarthyite or McCarthyist mantra, like we're gonna ruin your reputation. We're gonna call you a foreign spy, an enemy collaborator, etc., etc. It's so 1950s. Look, man, I got to be honest. I love the music of the 1950s. They had some nice cars, right? Drive-through cinema, burgers and fries. I love that. When we say bring back the 50s or whoever's saying that, we don't mean McCarthyism, all right? Bring back some of the music, yes, but not this crap, not this McCarthyite crap. No, thank you.